guys, Anne-Marie here, and today I am back with my first in the Spellbinders Advent project series. So today I'm going to be sharing the items that came in the Spellbinders Advent Calendar for days 1, 2, and 3, and creating a project with each of those. So we're going to have 3 cards by the end of this. So, hello. All right. So the first day was this really cute mailbox die set, and I was really looking forward to using it. However, I think I assembled it wrong. But you'll see when we get there. I'm just cutting down all of my cardstock so that I am kind of maximizing my scraps, and I'm just cutting what I need for each of the dies. And then the machine that I'm using here is from Spellbinders. It's called the Prism, and I got it on clearance for like $10. So I think I know why it was on clearance, because it doesn't really stick to the desktop like it's supposed to. But it still is great for really tiny dies because it's quick and easy to use, and it's also very portable. So I took it with me to a crop recently, and it was very handy. All right, so the next step, I wanted to use this swirly 3D embossing folder I had gotten recently on sale, and so I decided to use it, but with black to really make it pop. I knew that this texture was going to be just gorgeous, and don't laugh too hard at my very janky cutting platform. It just is what it is. Every time I look at buying one and they're $30, I'm like, it still works just fine. In fact, I almost kind of like it where it's apart and you have to stack it instead of having to flip through that whole big book that it kind of makes when it's hinged together. So I've just kept putting up with it. But I'm going to emboss that. And I decided I wanted another layer of this gold heart vellum. By the way, every single piece of paper except for the base card is from my scraps. So that's why some of it's bent, or like the black had a word cut out of it, because every single thing I pulled from my scraps, which I loved. That this was a great way to use up a bunch of them. Because you'll see all the cards, you might have seen in the thumbnail, all the cards kind of go together because, again, it's all for my scraps and I just was able to use the same ones. So now I'm just trimming everything down so I can start to lay it out in the final card how I want it to look. I found that really pretty, almost a full sheet, a giant piece of that pretty peach and coral red paper. And so I want that to be my base, and I love the swirl pattern, but I don't want it to cover it up. I want to be able to see some of it. So that's when I decided to cut this down to a square, and then the vellum down to a square as well. But then that meant I wanted some white to make the mailbox pop, and I wanted to be sure to cut the square big enough that the mailbox would fit on it nicely, and still kind of as small as I could, so that that swirl and little gold hearts would still show. So that's why I was holding holding the mailbox up to my trimmer. So I also ran my little itty bitty teeny tiny parts through my Xyron, and I'm going to kind of paper piece the die back together. And this is where I went off the rails just a little. I didn't quite like just the plain flat square, so I decided I would emboss it in the same swirl folder that I used for the black piece, and then I'm going to build my mailbox. All right, so I'm just going to build everything up, starting with my red kind of foundational layer, and then all the other layers onto my mailbox, and stick it all down. Oh, and I forgot, I did distress the edges on my base paper layer. And then I used a lot of tape on the back of the black square, since it was the 3D embossing. It was going to need it. And then I put my adhesive in the center on the vellum heart so that I knew it would be covered up by the white square. All right, so mailbox, down, check. It's fine. It looks great. Love it. All right, what's next? Okay, next, there's this little door flap. Okay, got it. Good. And it's embossed where it goes, so it was easy to like know where to place that. I apologize for being off camera there, but now I'm tucking in an envelope, and this is where I went wrong. I tucked it in underneath the flap, and if you know mailboxes, like those big postal boxes, they open at the top and hinge down, so the letter should have been going in the top. And I mean, I pushed the sucker down too. Like I really made sure it was adhered really nice and tight. And I didn't figure it out until later that I kind of put that completely wrong. By that point, all the pieces were so tiny, I couldn't get them back up properly. And so I just had to leave it wrong because otherwise I was going to tear the whole thing to shreds by picking them up. Although part of me wonders if I should have just done it, just popped it off and done it. But that's okay. I think my Valentine will be okay with it. So here I'm going to make the inside, and I've got some coordinating colors of ink. And then I cut a couple extra of there's like one tiny gold heart, so I use that to dot the I. And that's the first card done. All right, so for card number 2, day number 2 in the Advent calendar was this really cute little 3x3 stamp set with kind of buildable flowers. And so I decided you could do flat layered stamping with these because they're cut in such a way that, the flowers fit together, like I just am doing here. So you could totally do it as a completely flat card, but I thought it would look cool with more of a 3D effect. And so I am going to stamp a base layer, but then I'm going to stamp extras of the flowers too, so that I can pop them up with some foam tape and make them a little more dimensional. So first I just stamp everything, including some leaves, and I think there's like a little yellow flower there too. All right, so now I've got that with a cute little stitched edge, and I can start actually fussy cutting the other flowers. So I'm going to zip through that, but I'm going to cut 2 of the big flower and 1 more of the little orange flower, and then some leaves. So the first layer I'm going to add is the coral and the peach flower together. So that means that the yellow flower will be kind of on the very bottom, and it will be the base. Then my phone died, but I cut out another one of the kind of coral color, and that's the one that's going to go on top. So we have 1 layer of the coral and peach, and then an extra layer of the coral flower. And so I'm going to slow it down just on this segment so you can see the 2 stacks of dimension under the coral. I just really liked the look this gave. It reminded me of the 3D push-outs that I bought last year or last spring, and I just really liked the look that gave. And then I just popped a few more leaves up. I added a couple leaves, just popped. And then that's the kind of base focal element for this card complete. So I went back to my scrap bag and I found this really cute polka dot paper that just matched perfect. Like the coral and the peach were just right on. So I had these big blocks, but then the little flower was just kind of a square. And so I felt the need to kind of fill that space a little bit more. So it made it a little bit more balanced. And I decided wrapping twine, this hemp twine that I had around kind of the second layer of the card would do that. So I'm just going to distress my edges, and I'm going to mount that polka dot piece with some foam tape. And then I'm going to run my tape runner down so I can lay the hemp twine kind of over it, so that'll kind of hold it in place while I wrap it around. And then the foam tape is giving kind of me room to wrap that around so I'm not making a lumpy bumpy card, at least not too lumpy bumpy. So now what I want to do is tie a little bow. So I just wrapped it and I secured both ends, and then I'm going to thread a separate piece around and tie a bow. This is the easiest way I found to tie cute bows. Like I feel like I have a little bit more control over how the loops and tails fall when I do it this way. And then I'm just going to secure it with a little drop of glue, that matte multi-medium, so that I know it'll, stay cute. So I just trimmed the tails and I'm ready to do my sentiment. I'm taking the sentiment from the stamp set and I'm going to stamp that on the inside of my card because I didn't really, I mean, there's white space, but none of it's really a great place to put the sentiment, I didn't feel like. And then I'm just going to stamp the smallest flower. It was really more of like a center to be used as like a center for the other flowers. But I'm going to use a few of these teeny tiny centers and teeny tiny flowers and scatter them on the inside of the card in coordinating ink colors to kind of tie it all together. So that is card number 2 for day number 2. So on to day 3, project 3. So I'm going to be using that little kind of copper colored border die at the top there. It has 2 separate pieces. All right, so I still got a lot of that peach coral floral scrap. So I'm just going to go ahead and make that my foundational layer for my card and build everything else on top of that. This just wasn't really my style. I liked it like better than I thought I would when all was said and done, but I just really kind of struggled with how to use this. I kept trying to use that gold piece as a border. So I matted it on black and I matted it on white and I tried to do all these things to make it pop. And then I realized I just want to use that little decorative edge, like the little separate die. So I ran my card through to get that little bubble edge. And then I decided just to cut another gold piece that I would nestle up against it. And then this kind of led to me cutting up some of those tickets that I'd cut and everything. I completely ended up changing kind of the layout. And this happened over the course of probably a couple hours, quite honestly. So I cut a lot of that out. So at this point, it's looking very different than how I initially had planned it in my head. But I liked where it was going. So I'm going to glue the gold piece down at the bottom. I'm going to stack those pieces. And then there were some heart dies in the same set that the ticket dies were in. So I am going to use those even though I didn't use the tickets. And here you just see me using a toothpick dipped into my bottle of matte multimedium. And then I'm just kind of rolling it across that die cut. There's just no great way to do that. And then I'm going through and kind of wiping off the top so that I'm not smearing glue everywhere and dulling that pretty gold finish. All right, so now I just cut a bunch of hearts from scraps that I had that matched the colors that I've been using so far in my cards. And I just cut them from kind of all the main colors, so the coral and the red. And I didn't have any for the peach, so I just did some metallic gold ones. And I'm just going to play around with these until I find kind of an arrangement that I like. It gives us some variety of shape and size and color. A friend of mine designed these love-themed stamps a few years ago, and I haven't got to use them as much as I wanted, so I grabbed one of those, and I'm just going to stamp it directly on the inside of the card in that pretty deep red ink. Then I hadn't got to use any of the coral hearts on the outside, so I decided to just put a little tiny one on the inside to again tie the inside and outside together. And there's my finished final project. All right, and here is all 3 final projects. They turned out really cute. I'm happy that I have like a set of Valentine cards all ready to go, even with the little mishap on the mailbox. And I had fun using them. So I am going to start working on my next set of projects and I'll see you later. All right. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like or subscribing. And I hope you have a great week. All right. Bye.